If you bought a Jackery power station in the last few years, you probably picked it because it was the name everybody recommended. The brand that started this whole industry. That reputation was earned. Jackery invented the modern portable power station and built a real company on it. But last year, that same company posted its highest revenue in its history, and its profit fell by 93%. That is not a rumor from a forum. That is their own numbers, filed with Chinese securities regulators. Something happened to the brand that used to be the only name in the room, and if you are counting on one of their units to keep your fridge running or your well pump going when the grid goes down, you need to understand exactly what that something is. Fremont, California, 2012. A small team of engineers, several of them coming off battery work at Apple, started a company nobody had heard of, building portable power gear for camping trips and outdoor photographers. Nobody was paying attention to them yet. There was no such thing as a consumer power station category. If you wanted backup power, you bought a gas generator, dragged it outside, and hoped the neighbors weren't awake. That was about to change. By 2015, Jackery had shipped the Explorer series, and it is fair to call it the first mainstream lithium battery power station sold to regular people. 3 years later, in 2018, they followed it with the Solar Saga portable solar panels, giving buyers a way to recharge these things off-grid instead of just off a wall outlet. Jackery didn't just make a good product. They created the shopping category you now scroll through on Amazon every time you search backup power for outages. Every brand you've heard of since is, in some sense, following the trail Jackery cut first. I've been doing this job for 35 years, and I remember when the only backup option I could put in front of a homeowner was a loud, gas-hungry generator sitting in the driveway. Jackery gave people a quiet, plug-and-play alternative, and that mattered, especially to the folks who wanted to keep a fridge or a phone charger running without listening to a small engine roar for 3 days straight. The growth that followed was real, and it wasn't quiet. By the third quarter of 2025, Jackery had sold 6 million units cumulatively since 2018. You could find their power stations at Costco, Home Depot, Target, Best Buy, and Walmart, sitting on end caps next to the flashlights and the batteries during hurricane season, plus a partnership that put them into over 300 Canadian Tire stores across Canada. They picked up multiple CES Innovation Awards, including recognition in 2023 and again in 2026, and one of their concept products, a solar-powered rover inspired by the old Mars exploration robots, even landed on Time's list of the year's best inventions. In 2022, the parent company went public on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange's Chi-Next board, raising roughly $820 million in the process at a per-share price north of 230 yuan. This wasn't a garage startup that got lucky once. This was a company that built genuine market dominance, and for a few years, if you asked 100 people which power station brand to buy, almost all of them would have said the same word, Jackery. Walk through the comments section on any outage prep forum from around 2019 to 2021, and you'll see it for yourself. People weren't asking, which brand should I buy? They were asking, which Jackery should I buy? That's the kind of brand loyalty most companies spend a decade chasing and never catch. Jackery caught it in about 5 years. That's the part of the story you've probably already heard. What explains why the comments section under Jackery's own product pages started filling up with warnings is a different story entirely. While Jackery was busy being the obvious answer Three companies were quietly building the thing that would take that answer away from them. The first was EcoFlow, founded in 2017 by a team of former DJI engineers. If you know DJI, you know they don't ship a product until the engineering is dialed in, and EcoFlow brought that same obsession to charging speed. Their signature feature, fast charging that could take a battery from empty to around 80% in about an hour, solved the single biggest complaint Jackery owners had been living with for years. A Jackery unit that took 5 or 6 hours to refill was fine for a weekend camping trip. It was a real problem when a storm was rolling back in and you needed your battery topped off before the next outage hit. EcoFlow's Delta line hit that gap directly, and the company grew fast enough to reach a $1 billion valuation within about 4 years of founding. The second was Anker SOLIX. Anker had been making phone chargers and portable batteries for a decade before it ever touched a power station, and it walked into this fight with something Jackery didn't have anymore: a clean reputation and zero history of customer complaints in this specific category. SOLIX products lean hard on a 5-year warranty, more than double the 2-year standard the rest of the industry, plus their own fast-charging tech that can refill a battery in under an hour. When a brand shows up late to a category but backs its gear with 2.5 times the warranty of the company that invented the category, that tells you something about where they think the real competition is happening. The third was Bluetti, which grew out of an existing lithium battery manufacturer rather than starting from zero. That gave them a head start on chemistry, and it showed. Bluetti pushed early into lithium iron phosphate battery cells and expanded aggressively into home battery territory, competing not just for your camping trip, but for your whole house backup budget. None of these three companies beat Jackery by copying it. They beat Jackery by studying exactly where Jackery was slow, expensive, or stubborn, and then building the opposite. EcoFlow attacked the charging speed complaint. Anker attacked the warranty complaint. Bluetti attacked the chemistry complaint. Jackery had built the whole house, and three competitors walked in through 3 different doors that Jackery had left open. And that brings us to the part of this story that actually explains the fall, not just the competition. Every lithium battery in this category uses one of 2 main chemistries: NMC, which is nickel manganese cobalt, and lithium iron phosphate, which is lithium iron phosphate. NMC packs slightly more energy into a smaller space, which is why it was the default chemistry for years. But it degrades faster under repeated deep cycling, typically good for somewhere around 500 to 1,000 cycles before it drops to 80% of its original capacity, and it's less thermally stable than the alternative. Lithium iron phosphate trades a little bit of energy density for a massive gain in lifespan, often rated for 3,000 to 6,000 cycles, and it holds up better to heat. Bluetti moved to lithium iron phosphate around 2020. EcoFlow followed in 2021. Jackery didn't make the switch across its lineup until late 2022, starting with the Explorer 1000 Plus. That's a 1 to 2 year gap where Jackery kept selling NMC batteries into a market that was already moving on. And the people who bought during that window are the ones now discovering what a battery on a 500 cycle chemistry looks like after a few years of regular use. One reviewer tracked this directly. Their 2019 Jackery Explorer 500, running NMC cells, tested at around 78% of its original capacity after 6 years of light use. A 2023 EcoFlow Delta II running lithium iron phosphate tested at 98% capacity under similar conditions. That's not a marginal difference. That's the gap between a battery that still does its job and one that's quietly failing you. I want to be straight with you about something here, because this channel doesn't do fear-mongering. That older Jackery isn't dangerous, and it isn't a scam. It's a battery built on an older chemistry that every other major brand had already moved past. The people who bought it weren't foolish. They bought the trusted name at the time it was the trusted name. But if you're one of them, and your unit is a few years old and holding less charge than it used to, that's not you doing something wrong. That's the chemistry catching up to the calendar. And as of 2026, roughly 70% of Jackery's current lineup has finished the transition to lithium iron phosphate against 100% for EcoFlow. They got there late. That lag shows up in the sales data too. In October of 2023, the tech outlet Charger Lab published an analysis of Amazon's U.S. bestseller rankings for this category. A year earlier, Jackery held 4 of the top spots. By that October, Jackery was down to 3, and EcoFlow had climbed from 1 spot to 4. That's not a rumor. That's a documented shift in who was actually winning the shelf space that matters most. Now, I want to be careful here, because I promised you honest numbers, and honest means not overselling this either. No research firm publishes an exact market share percentage broken down by brand for portable power stations specifically. Anyone who tells you Jackery has X% of the market is making that number up. What we do know from Amazon's own bestseller data is that the crown changed hands sometime around late 2023. That's real. A specific market share figure is not something anyone can actually cite. Here's where the story stops being about product reviews and starts being about the company itself. Jackery's parent, Shenzhen Tech Energy, is a publicly traded company, which means their financial results are a matter of public record, not speculation. In 2022, the year of their initial public offering, they posted revenue of about 3.2 billion yuan and a healthy profit. In 2023, revenue dropped nearly 28%, and the company posted a net loss, its first as a public company. That swing was severe enough that the Shenzhen Stock Exchange sent them a formal inquiry letter asking them to explain it. They clawed back in 2024 with revenue climbing 56% and profit returning. That looked like a real recovery. But then came 2025. Revenue rose again, up nearly 15%, hitting an all-time high of about 4.1 billion yuan, and in the same year, net profit collapsed by 92.84%, landing at just 17 million yuan. Read that back. Revenue up, profit almost gone. That is the signature of a company discounting hard and spending heavily on marketing just to hold its position against faster, cheaper, better warrantied competitors. You don't lose 93% of your profit while growing your sales unless you're fighting a war on price, and wars on price are expensive to win and expensive to lose. Their market cap has fallen roughly 70% from its peak after the initial public offering. This is the part of the story that doesn't show up in a 5-star Amazon review, and it's the part that tells you the most about where this brand actually stands. I mean, think about that for a second. This is a company that invented an entire product category, sold 6 million units, went public, and is now making almost nothing on record sales. That's not a brand in crisis, but it's not the untouchable leader it was 3 years ago either. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover backup power and home energy gear every week, and I'd rather you hear the honest version from someone who's wired hundreds of these systems than from a review that's chasing an affiliate check. So, what does that pressure look like from the customer's side? This is where it gets a little more subjective. So let's be clear about what's a fact and what's a pattern of complaints. Jackery Power Outdoors is not accredited with the Better Business Bureau, and recent complaints there describe error codes on newer flagship units, batteries that won't take a charge at all, and a warranty process where, in one customer's words, every new representative starts the troubleshooting over from scratch. Trustpilot shows a similarly split picture, a solid overall rating pulled down by a consistent thread of warranty and stock complaints. I want to be precise about what this is and isn't. This isn't a documented failure rate. Nobody publishes that number, and anybody who quotes you a specific percentage of Jackery units that fail is making it up. What this is a pattern of frustrated customers showing up in the same places, telling similar stories about slow support and units that don't hold up the way the brand's reputation promised. I'll say this plainly. None of that is a documented failure rate, and I'm not going to hand you a fake percentage just to make the point land harder. What it is a consistent thread. Enough owners describing the same warranty runaround in the same words on enough different platforms that it stops looking like a handful of unlucky customers and starts looking like a support system that hasn't scaled with the company's growth. Now, here's a correction I need to make, because getting this wrong would be worse than anything Jackery has actually done. You will find people online talking about a Jackery recall, sometimes tied to fire concerns. I checked the actual source. There is no Jackery product listed in the Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission's recall database. Not one. What people are referring to is a 2022 program where Jackery offered free replacements for early Explorer 1,000 units sold between January 2020 and October 2021 due to a display and battery management issue. That's a company-run replacement program, not a government safety recall, and there's a real difference between those two things. And here's the part that should tell you this channel isn't just picking on Jackery. It's EcoFlow, the brand eating Jackery's lunch in the reviews, that has an actual CPSC recall on record. In October of 2025, the Commission recalled roughly 25,000 EcoFlow Delta Max 2000 power stations, model number EFD310, after the company received 6 reports of units catching fire, with property damage totaling more than $850,000. The fix was a free firmware update, not a physical return, and to EcoFlow's credit, they handled it through the proper channel instead of quietly replacing units and hoping nobody asked questions. But I bring this up because accuracy is the whole point of this channel. Every brand in this space has had a real issue at some point. The difference is which ones handle it through an actual recall and which ones handle it quietly. So, where does that leave Jackery in 2026? Their current lineup has finished most of the lithium iron phosphate transition. The flagship Explorer 2005-2 now runs lithium iron phosphate chemistry, puts out 2,200 watts, continuous with a 4,400 watt surge, recharges to full in about 1.7 hours, and switches to backup power in under 20 milliseconds if the grid drops. It's rated for over 3,000 cycles and carries a 5-year warranty when you register it, which finally puts Jackery's coverage in line with what Anker has been offering for years. At a street price that's dropped to somewhere around $600 to $800, down from an original list price near $1,500, that unit is a genuinely strong buy for its size class. I'd put that one on my own short list. But when independent reviewers put together their best of lists in 2025 and 2026, the top overall pick is usually the EcoFlow Delta 3 Plus, and the best value and best home backup picks usually go to Anker SOLIX. Jackery still shows up, but it shows up as one option among several instead of the automatic first name on the list. That's the fall, in plain terms. Not a company that collapsed, a company that got out-engineered and out-warrantied by people who studied its mistakes. So, let's talk about what to actually buy, tier by tier, based on real specs and real 2026 pricing. If you're shopping around the 1 kilowatt-hour size, the everyday size for running a fridge and a few essentials during a short outage, look at the Anker SOLIX C1000. It runs about $600, sometimes less on sale, holds just over 1,000 watt-hours, puts out 1,800 watts continuous with a 3,000 watt surge, recharges in under 50 minutes, and comes with that 5-year warranty. The EcoFlow Delta 3 is right in that same range, around 1,000 watt-hours, expandable, with a 10 millisecond UPS switchover and its own 5-year warranty. Either one beats a comparable Jackery unit on charge speed and warranty length at a similar price. In the 2 kilowatt-hour range, this is genuinely the one place I'll tell you to consider staying with Jackery. The Explorer 2000 V2 at that $600 to $800 street price with the specs I just gave you holds its own against anything else in that class. It's light for its capacity at under 40 pounds, and its solar input is still some of the best in the category if you're planning to recharge off-grid. Credit where it's due. For whole home backup, the kind of setup meant to ride out a multi-day outage and actually run your furnace blower, your well pump, and your refrigerator together, look at the Anker SOLIX F3800. It holds 3,840 watt-hours, puts out 6,000 watts, and it's one of the only units in this price range with native 240-volt output built in, which matters if you're trying to run anything hardwired at that voltage. It runs around $2,000 on sale, expandable up to nearly 27 kilowatt-hours if you add battery packs. BlueT's Elite 400 line is worth a look too, especially if you're prioritizing battery longevity over raw output. Jackery's Home Power 3600 Plus competes here mostly on weight, since it's noticeably lighter than the F3800. So if you actually need to move the thing, that's a real advantage. If it's staying put in a garage or a utility room, the extra output on the SOLIX wins that fight. Across all 3 tiers, the pattern holds. Jackery is still on the shopping list. It just isn't the only name on it anymore, and in most of those price brackets, it isn't the first name either. One thing that applies no matter which brand you choose. If you're wiring any of these units into your home's electrical panel, instead of just running extension cords to it, you need a proper transfer switch or interlock kit, full stop. Backfeeding a panel without one can send power backward down the line during an outage, and that can kill a lineman working to restore your power, along with putting your own house at real risk. Any 240-volt hardwired connection needs a licensed electrician and a permit pulled through your local code office. That's not me being cautious for no reason. That's the one step that protects your family and keeps your homeowner's insurance valid if anything ever goes wrong. So, here's where I land on all of this. Jackery built this industry. That's not marketing, that's history. And nobody in this space would exist in its current form without the ground. Jackery broke back in 2015. But building an industry and staying at the front of it are two different jobs, and the numbers say Jackery has been losing the second one since around late 2023. A 1 to 2 year lag on battery chemistry, a profit collapse that its own public filings can't hide, and a warranty structure that's still catching up to competitors who studied Jackery's playbook and then outbuilt it. As of right now, Jackery is not the automatic buy it was 5 years ago. It's one option in a field it no longer leads, with exactly one product on the current lineup, the Explorer 2000 V2, that I'd still put in my own garage without hesitation. Everywhere else on their shelf, do the math yourself before you buy, because the brand name alone doesn't carry the weight it used to.